We're all familiar with the typical TV remote control, which has loads of buttons which have since disappeared from our smartphones. But as TVs are getting smarter, they're getting more complicated, and we simply can't put enough buttons for all the functionality we get on a modern television set. Which is why a lot of companies are looking at motion control technologies, such as this device from Philips, the Philips Hue wand, which has two types of sensor. It has a line of sight sensor with light and also uses gyroscopic and accelerometer controls. So Andy, how does it work?
That's correct, thank you Chris. Okay, so essentially U1 Technologies, there is a camera in the front of this remote control unit, and this remote control itself could take any form, and that the receiver is either built into the set-top box itself or into the bezel of a smart TV. And the two line up together to give you direct and fluid pointing control. So wherever I point on the screen is exactly where the cursor will appear. And the benefit of this over competing technologies that you might have heard around in the industry, such as gyroscope control, is that if I point off the screen, if I go over here and I come back, the cursor appears exactly where I'm pointing because it's lined up due to that camera.
Excellent, yeah. So it's got two types of sensing systems inside it.
It does indeed. So as I said, the first one is that direct camera pointing control technology. The second is it has an accelerometer built into it, and that can introduce sort of additional functionality such as gesture-based control. So if I was to hold down a particular button on this remote control and draw an eye on the screen, then that might take me to an internet browser. Or if I was to draw an M, then that would take me to the movies tab.
Yeah.
And obviously this for functionality itself can be customized by the set-top box manufacturer or the smart TV manufacturer to have as many functionalities as they want to include, really.
Philips Hue wand has two separate sensors. The first is gyroscopic sensor, and the device has accelerometers which detect movement in the device itself. But it is also augmented with a line of sight camera sensor. Line of sight sensor for motion control are very common in video consoles and other devices which don't require a physical controller.
And this is true of the Leap Motion device, but it is probably one of the most accessible devices for PCs at the moment. Now, as you can see, it's a small device that's connected to my Mac, and it can work with the PC as well. And if I hover my hands outstretched, it sees each individual finger. If I clench them into a fist, it sees nothing. And if I just use my index finger, it can see the main index finger as such. Right, so I'm just going to exit out of this application. So another application which Leap Motion have created themselves is Freeform, which essentially is a graphics application, and it's essentially been designed to show some of the features of their software. So I'm going to go to Object and create a shape. So this is a cylinder shape. I'm going to discard this object, and here it is. So I'm going to position that. Going to select spin, select a medium spin, and it's spinning slowly. So I'm going to choose a tool. So there are various tools available to me. So this is a repel tool. So I've selected that, and I'm going to just make a little pattern, just as if I was sculpting in clay. So there we have. We've created something, a little sort of like indentation there.
Elliptic Labs is a Norwegian-based company that has developed gesture recognition technology using ultrasound for touchless gesturing for smartphones and Windows PCs. The software can recognize gestures within 180 degrees from the front of a display at a range of up to 50 centimeters to a meter away from it. Developers or users can create their own gestures in ways that help them navigate quickly. The system works when sound waves bounce off a person whose motion is being observed, and thus a sonar picture is able to be built up. The advantage is that the peripheral sensing can be up to 180 degrees and not just right in front of the device. Therefore, we have three very different sensing technologies for detecting movement, enabling us to wave to the future of motion control.